Embolden, as defined by the Oxford Dictionary, is to give someone the courage or confidence to do something or behave in a certain way. And I believe the bike in front of us lives up to the nameplate on its top tube. This is the 2022 LIV Embolden, and it offers a great way for somebody to get into mountain biking, to become a more capable trail rider, or live up to a certain way of mountain bike living. So in this video, we're going to go into the features and designs of this bike. We'll talk about what it's all about, and then of course, we'll find out exactly what it weighs. So if that kind of thing is interesting to you, stick around and let's check out the bike together. All right, getting into the LIV Embolden. So we started off with the dictionary definition of what embolden means, because I think that's important when talking about this bike. So LIV is the women's specific brand of Giant, their parent company, but they make some specific bikes that really are tailored towards female riders and offer some pretty neat features as well. And this bike in front of us, the Embolden, is a perfect name for a bike that's going to be able to help somebody become a more capable mountain biker, really get into the sport. And this particular one, being $2,300, is about the price of what a lot of hardtails with similar part specs would be. So it's a very neat bike for that rider trying to become more confident and more capable. And it lines up very well against the Giant Stance, which is sort of the male version of this bike. Now, LIV has been around for quite some time, and they're becoming more and more unique because most of the bike brands have moved to just having a unisex bike. Now, there's lots of good reasons for that, and of course, not everyone needs a gender-specific bike. But I think it's really important that there are still brands out there making specific bikes for certain riders to be able to make sure everyone feels included and able to participate. And so this Embolden that's in front of us here, this is rocking 130 millimeters of front suspension travel, 120 millimeters of rear suspension travel, an aluminum frame, and 27.5-inch wheels. So it's a good combination of capability to go out on the trail. Now, other things to mention here from a geometry standpoint, this is also where it's pretty strong because this particular bike rocks in with a 67.5 degree or 67 degree head tube angle, depending on the size that you get, and then a seat tube angle of 74 to 76 degrees, again, depending on the size. Now, talking about size, the one in front of us here is a extra small. So this bike is going to come from extra small to large, giving a nice size range for different riders. And it's built using their Alux aluminum frame with the flex point rear suspension. So this flex point rear suspension is effectively a single pivot with one pivot just in front of the crank, and then it goes back to this solid rear triangle. Now, what's neat about that is that it's going to give some good pedaling performance. It's still going to have nice bump compliance. And then it does have this rocker link to drive the suspension of that RockShox rear shock. But it's going to help keep the price point lower than, say, the Maestro suspension or a multi-link suspension that you'll see on more expensive bikes. And rounding out that suspension up front is 130 millimeter travel RockShox Recon, or in some of these bikes, it will come with the Giant Crest 34, which those two forks are going to give good performance on the bike and a little bit of a trade-off. So the RockShox Recon that's on here might be a slightly nicer fork. However, it's coming with these narrower 32 millimeter stanchions. And then that Giant Crest is going to be a little bit beefier with 34 millimeter stanchions, but not quite as nice of a damper. Now, speaking of damper, on both forks, you're going to have the ability to have a compression lockout so you can make the front end totally stiff or be able to flip that open. The further up it goes, the more plush the suspension is. You can also then adjust the spring rate via the air pressure here, which is going to allow you to be able to set this up to your weight as well as riding style. Now, this Embolden is the Embolden 1, which means it's going to be the nicest in the 2 model lineup of the Embolden. The Embolden 2 is about $1,850, so roughly about $450 less than this, but the big differences are going to come into the drivetrain and those suspension components. The fork and the shock on the Embolden 1 are quite a bit nicer. And then down here with the drivetrain, it gets you a very good 1x12 drivetrain. So this is SRAM's SX lineup. So it's going to be a single ring up front, so only shifting in the back, which is operated via this SX rear derailleur and goes through an 11 to 50 tooth rear cassette. So that means that all your shifting happens in the back, so only one shifter on the handlebar, which is going to help keep this much more simple to use and really reliable. And it makes for shifting pretty darn easy with a thumb button going to an easier gear and then a thumb button in front going to a harder gear. So it's up and down, not too bad. Also gives a nice clean cockpit with this all alloy cockpit, an aluminum 31.8 handlebar to this nice stubby stem. But even nicer is the back end of the bike is going to come with a dropper post. So the dropper post is 1x style actuated. So you've got this little lever just like a 1x. And so if we press it, you'll see that the seat post comes up. Now, this being an extra small version has a very short dropper post, and that's because we want to make sure we can still keep the right sizes. However, on an extra small, that's 75 millimeters of drop length, but on, say, the size large, it goes up to 125 millimeters. So that drop length there, that amount that it can raise and lower, is size specific to the size of the bike, which all makes sense. Now, slowing the bike down is going to be via some Tektro Orion 4P brakes. Now, the other spec that comes with the bike is the Shimano BR MT420. Both of them use a mineral oil hydraulic fluid in the brake, and then they go down to 4-piston calipers, both on the front and the rear. The last thing to talk about is going to be how it rolls down the trail, and that's going to be via these giant AM 27.5-inch wheels. So this is a tubeless ready, nice and wide wheel. It comes tubeless out of the box, and it's mounted up with some Recon tires from Maxxis. This is the Exo Protection version of the tire, and the Recon does a good job of being a mixture of nice grip with these strong side knobs and intermediate knobs, but then you can see the tread blocks are ramped. You see that little angle going up? That's going to allow these tall knobs through the center to still have some pretty decent rolling speed. Well, anyways, now that we've gotten a chance to take a look at this LIV Embolden 1, let's go ahead and find out what it weighs. The LIV Embolden 1 in a size extra small is going to come in and weigh 30.96 pounds. Thanks for joining me on this James the Bike Guy, checking out the LIV Embolden 1. Go ahead and let me know your thoughts on this bike down in the comment section below. While you're at it, be sure to leave me a like, hit that like button, as well as hit the subscribe button so you can see more videos like this to check out in the future as well.